My sister dropped her kids off with me because of an emergency, but I found out through social media that she just went to a wedding, and her new boyfriend doesn't even know she has kids. My sister, let's call her Miranda, has always been a source of stress for me. We never got along. She's quite manipulative and tends to exhibit narcissistic traits. The thing is, Miranda was born prematurely, which caused our parents to be overly anxious and protective of her. Unfortunately, this often made me feel forgotten. My parents might miss my school plays or basketball games, and even forget to pick me up from events. A particularly painful topic has always been birthday gifts. My parents would give Miranda cute and thoughtful things that made her happy, while I would get books or teddy bears that I didn't even like. It became a constant reminder that my own sister overshadowed me. Dealing with our parents' unfairness was tough, but my sister took it to a new level, enjoying their favoritism and using it against me. For example, one time she tore up my dress while I was sleeping just because a guy she liked asked me out instead of her. I was horrified and couldn't hold back my tears because I really loved that dress. When I told our parents about it, they scolded her, but she immediately played the victim, crying and claiming that she liked the guy first and that I was doing it on purpose because I hated her. To my horror, my parents felt sorry for her after her dramatic story and advised me to avoid guys my sister liked so as not to hurt her feelings. It was terribly unfair because it wasn't my fault that the guy noticed me. Another incident happened when I begged my parents for a long time to go to Six Flags amusement park for my birthday. However, my sister found out about it and decided she wanted to go to Six Flags for her birthday too. Since her birthday was before mine, my parents agreed to her request. She didn't even ride half of the attractions, and I knew she chose that place purely to spite me. In the end, for my birthday, my parents just took me to a restaurant we always went to anyway. I was very upset, but they told me there was no point in going to Six Flags twice in 1 year. As we got older, Miranda started treating me even worse. She constantly gave me backhanded compliments like, "Your face looks better with glasses," or "You like that boy. I thought you were into girls." As a teenager, I always tried to keep a low profile. Unlike me, Miranda was a social butterfly. In public, she seemed kind and helpful, but in private, she became my worst nightmare. Sometimes she would act nice, but only if she needed something from me. Once she got what she wanted, she would start ignoring me or bullying me again. Miranda made me feel insecure not only about my appearance but also about the guys I dated. When I was 17, I got my first boyfriend, but Miranda managed to instill doubts in me about him. She said he was too handsome for me and that he would dump me soon anyway, so it was better to break up with him first. Every time my boyfriend came over to my house, Miranda would start flirting with him, getting too close, touching his arms, and laughing loudly and unnaturally. Of course, this made my boyfriend uncomfortable. A few months after Miranda had thoroughly planted her doubts in my mind, I decided to break up with him. Looking back now, I realize I did the wrong thing. He seemed to be a genuinely good person. After high school, I went to college in another state to study engineering. I would come home for the holidays, only to be met with Miranda's subtle and mocking comments again. The toxic atmosphere never went away. At 25, Miranda met her future husband, Dave, and 2 years later they decided to get married. She announced their engagement, surprising everyone since we knew she was dating other guys at the same time. Nevertheless, we were happy that she finally decided to settle down with a decent person. Anyway, Miranda decided to make me her maid of honor at the wedding. My parents were thrilled that I would be a part of this event, but I felt the complete opposite. I knew that the role of maid of honor would not be easy, and as it turned out, I was right. Miranda constantly used this role to control and manipulate me. She regularly threatened to demote me or strip me of my maid of honor status altogether if I did anything she didn't like. All of this made the whole wedding planning process extremely stressful. When she asked for my opinion, I always answered honestly. But every time, she would get angry, blame me for everything, and throw tantrums. Because of her aggressive reactions, I started to keep quiet to avoid accidentally saying something that might provoke another conflict. I just couldn't take the verbal abuse anymore and preferred to maintain a semblance of peace. One day at lunch, we were discussing wedding plans, and I simply asked if the maid of honor would have a special dress, just to better understand her vision. Miranda immediately started shouting, accusing me of wanting to be the center of attention. Then the conversation turned to lodging for the guests. My mom said it would be a good idea to book an Airbnb in advance, and I agreed. At that point, my sister just exploded and said that she had already discussed it with her fiancé and that they would be booking hotel rooms. She continued to yell at me, accusing me of being stupid and saying that I should consult with her first before agreeing with anyone's suggestions because I was her maid of honor and essentially working for her. I fell silent, trying not to make the situation worse. Then she started accusing me of being negative and in a bad mood. My mom tried to intervene, but my sister interrupted her and said she was tired of dealing with such an immature maid of honor like me and that I needed to grow up. At that point, I just kept quiet and waited for her to finally stop yelling. In the end, she decided it was time for us to go home, her to her apartment, and me back to mine. When we got to the car, she continued to yell at me in the parking lot for another 10 minutes, repeating the same things over and over. At that moment, the only thing I wanted was to run away somewhere far, but my car was a 20-minute walk away, so Miranda had to give me a ride. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The ceremony itself went relatively well. However, even here, Miranda found reasons to pick fights with me over the most insignificant things. During the reception, she openly yelled at me in front of everyone, which made the atmosphere tense and unpleasant. I noticed her malicious glares between the entertainment. First, she didn't like the music choice, then the waiters were serving drinks incorrectly in her opinion. When it was my turn to give a speech, I stood up, hoping to say something warm and sincere, but Miranda gestured for me to finish quickly. Later, she accused me of mentioning her childhood in my speech and supposedly trying to make her look bad in front of her new family. I was heartbroken because everyone else seemed to like my speech. Even my parents had no complaints. The next morning, as the chaos subsided, I realized how intense the anxiety I had been living with for the past few months was. And the reason for it was Miranda. I finally understood that she had always been my main problem throughout my entire life. I wish I had had the courage back then to refuse to be in that wedding, but I knew that my family would have blamed me. When this nightmare was over, I was finally able to fully dedicate myself to my career. A few months later, I met my current boyfriend, Tom. We started dating and a year later decided to move in together. My parents were happy for us. However, my sister expressed her disapproval, saying that Tom looked too boring and was just a typical computer nerd. In reality, Tom worked in IT and earned 3 times as much as I did. Miranda didn't know that, and I didn't care at all. I was happy with him, and my sister's opinion didn't matter to me. One day, my life suddenly changed when my sister announced at a family dinner that she was pregnant. If you're wondering how this affected me, well, right after that, she said she couldn't wait to see me become an aunt because she would really need my help during this difficult period. Her words shocked me. She was an adult, about to have a baby, but instead of asking for help from her husband or our parents, for some reason, she decided that I should be the one to babysit her child. You see, I had never had children in my life and had no experience with them at all. I always felt uncomfortable around children and had no desire to interact with them. I was quite happy not having children yet, so her words really scared me. At that moment, I felt cornered. I knew my sister would find a way to make me babysit her child, especially since I worked from home and it would be convenient for her to bring the baby to me at any time. My sister knew no boundaries. As soon as I tried to set any limits, my parents would immediately rush to her defense. When my sister had her first child, I would sometimes look after him. At first, it wasn't too much of a burden because her husband worked the night shift and my sister worked during the day, so I just had to let her husband get some sleep. I was never left completely alone with the baby, and the first time I started looking after him was when he was already 6 months old. At that age, it was a bit easier. Unfortunately, over time, such instances became more frequent. I was asked to babysit more and more often, and my sister constantly criticized my childcare methods. I could be peacefully working when I would suddenly get a call from my sister or my mom asking about my plans for the weekend. If I said I had no plans, I would simply be informed that I was going to my sister's to give her a break. The conversation would end there. Because of these requests, I gradually started to feel like I had a second job, for which, by the way, I wasn't paid. One might expect my sister to at least be grateful for my help, but no, that wasn't the case. Every time I came home, she would call my mom and complain that I did something wrong. Either I changed a diaper incorrectly, or I fed the baby wrong. In short, she nitpicked about little things, which annoyed me terribly because I was already doing her a favor. Now you understand how manipulative she was. My sister and I were clearly not close, and she should have been grateful that I was helping her at all. Instead, she would smile to my face, but behind my back, she only made our relationship worse. In the end, I got really angry. All of this started to affect my mental state, and Tom noticed it too. One evening, we had a heart-to-heart talk, and I let it all out. He convinced me to finally stand up to my family. The next time I got a call asking me to babysit, I refused outright. Miranda and my mom started calling and asking me to do it for the sake of the family, but I stood my ground and told them to get lost. I felt I had already done more than I should have and wanted nothing more to do with my sister or her child. I cut off all contact with my sister. She would come to my house when I didn't answer her calls, but I refused to open the door. My parents also tried to make me forgive her, but eventually gave up, realizing I wouldn't budge. I would sometimes talk to my parents, but that was it. This went on for 2 years. During this time, Miranda had a second child with Dave. Last year, my mom called me and told me that Miranda and Dave were getting divorced. It was quite unexpected. Although I didn't want to have anything to do with my sister, this news still surprised me. When I asked my mom for more details, it turned out that Miranda was sleeping with her co-workers. Apparently, Dave found texts of a very intimate nature on her second phone, which she always hid from him. He gathered evidence and filed for divorce. For Miranda, this came as a complete surprise because Dave served her with the divorce papers right away. When she tried to justify herself, he said he knew everything. She begged him to forgive her, but he left. I was shocked by this turn of events, although looking back now, I realized that Dave was too good for her. So, in a way, I'm glad he got out of that nightmare. After the divorce, Miranda was forced to move back in with our parents. I heard them complain that she would be out all night and come home drunk and reeking of alcohol in the mornings. Eventually, she was fired from her job because she was constantly late. This made her drink even more. While she was out having fun, my parents were forced to take care of her children. This went on for months. Unlike her, my life was going great. Tom and I got a dog, bought a house, and gradually moved in. We're discussing marriage, but we're in no rush at all. We're sure we'll always be together, so we're just enjoying the moment. When we had a housewarming party, I was forced to invite my parents. Unfortunately, without my knowledge, they also brought my sister and her kids. Seeing her made me angry, but I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the guests, so I kept quiet. Tom greeted them warmly and offered them drinks while I glared at my parents. My father came up to me and sheepishly said that he didn't want to bring Miranda, but my mother hoped we would make up and thought this was the perfect moment. My sister loudly told her kids to go hug me because I was their aunt. I forced a smile as they hugged me. Then Miranda started lecturing me that I should be a more involved aunt because the kids barely knew me and I should make more of an effort. I clenched my teeth to stop myself from saying something that would embarrass her in front of everyone. During the party, I noticed that Miranda was constantly drinking wine and not watching her children at all. Her kids were behaving horribly. They were chasing our dog, trying to kick it or pull its tail. They tried to get into our bedroom, even though I had specifically closed it so that no guests would go in there, and they even managed to break a vase while playing. I was on the verge of exploding and kept looking at Miranda, waiting to see if she would say anything to her kids. But she couldn't have cared less. She was laughing and drinking, not a care in the world. When the guests wanted to see the house, Miranda joined them. I showed everyone the rooms, and when we went out into the yard, Miranda loudly declared that such a house was too big for two people and started asking loudly if I planned on having children. This immediately drew the attention of the other guests, and they looked at me curiously. I sharply shut my sister down, saying it was none of her business. But Miranda immediately replied that my life decisions were the whole family's business, especially since I was an aunt. My irritation was growing, but I kept myself in check in front of the guests. The more she drank, the more provocative her behavior became. Miranda started making inappropriate remarks about my relationship with Tom, saying that we were wasting our time by not getting married and having children. I could feel the tension in the room, but I decided to ignore her comments. Later in the evening, when most of the guests had already left, I decided it was time to sort things out. I took Miranda aside and told her how unhappy I was with her behavior, especially given our difficult history. As expected, Miranda took it badly. She accused me of being arrogant and ungrateful, reminding me of how much time I supposedly owed her for letting me babysit her children. My parents tried to resolve the conflict. My mom started trying to convince me to forgive Miranda again. However, I stood firm and asked them all to leave. After this incident, I decided that I never wanted to see my sister again, nor did I want to have anything to do with my mother, who constantly supported her. I thought if I stopped talking to them, everything would get better. But yesterday morning, there was an unexpected knock on the door. When I opened the door, I saw Miranda. She had a desperate look on her face. She hurriedly explained that she had a serious problem and needed my help urgently. According to her, there was an emergency at her work, and she had no one else to look after her children. She begged me to babysit them for just a few hours. I looked at the children. They were sleepy and exhausted, and it hurt me to think that she had woken them up so early just to bring them to me. I asked why she didn't go to our parents. Miranda said they were at our aunt's. She even said I could check, which I of course did later. When I suggested she contact her ex-husband, she said he was currently sleeping and not picking up the phone because he worked the night shift. So, according to her, I was her last hope. I reluctantly agreed to look after the children, and she left pleased. After closing the door behind her, I felt a mixture of irritation and pity. I was amazed by Miranda's audacity, bringing her children to me without any warning, without thinking about my own plans. Despite my resentment, I decided to do my best to make the children comfortable. We played, watched cartoons, and I even tried to get them interested in drawing and other simple activities. Surprisingly, they calmed down quickly once we got to know each other better. And over time, I even started to enjoy spending time with them. By lunchtime, I suddenly realized that I had no idea if the children had any food allergies and decided not to risk it and to check with Miranda. I dialed her number, hoping for a quick answer, but she didn't pick up. I tried again, and it went to voicemail. Then I decided to ask the children directly. I gently explained to them that their mom seemed very busy at work and wasn't answering her phone, and I cautiously asked if they had any food allergies or if there were any foods they didn't like. The older girl, talking about her food preferences, suddenly let it slip that maybe her mom wasn't picking up the phone because she was busy at a wedding. I frowned and asked how she knew that. The girl hesitated and admitted that she had heard Miranda discussing it with a friend on the way to my place. The pieces of the puzzle came together, and a wave of anger washed over me. I thanked the children for their honesty and assured them that everything was fine. Immediately after that, I called my parents to get to the bottom of the situation. After a long argument, my mom finally admitted it. Miranda had indeed gone to a wedding where children were not allowed. She went there with her new boyfriend, who had no idea she was a mother of two. My mom tried to justify Miranda's actions, saying that men don't like women with children, so she decided to hide the fact that she had kids. But I was just furious because my sister had lied to me again and manipulated me again, taking advantage of my willingness to help. Then I checked Miranda's social media to confirm this information. On her Instagram page, There were recent stories from the wedding. She was smiling and drinking. I shook my head in disappointment. Looking through her Instagram, I realized there wasn't a single photo of her children. My sister, a mother of two, was actively pretending to be single and childless, erasing her own children from her public life. Later, when Miranda came back to pick up the children, we had a huge fight. I made it clear to her that I didn't want to be a part of her deception and warned her, "If you ever leave your children with me like this again, I will call social services." Miranda was furious when she heard this and started insulting me. But then Tom, who had already come home from work, intervened. He threatened to call the police, after which she immediately left. After everything that happened, I feel drained and emotionally exhausted. I'm grateful that Tom is always on my side. However, my mom and aunt contacted me again, urging me to be more understanding of the difficulties of a single mother and insisting that I should learn to help my family in difficult times. So, before we move on to the update and find out what happened next, I suggest you write in the comments right now what you think about this story. Personally, I believe the author is 100% right here, and she's not obligated to look after her sister's children. Even without considering the whole toxic background with her sister and parents, the sister is not obligated to watch the children if she doesn't want to, in my opinion. And considering this background, there's really nothing to talk about. Yes, family relationships imply some help, but it's mutual help, not a one-way street. And using any kind of community as a cover is always manipulation. Now let's find out how the events unfolded. Update 1. Thank you all so much for your understanding and support. I received many messages from strangers asking if I was okay and sharing their own stories about toxic relatives similar to my sister. After reading the comments, I came to the conclusion that my mother is also behaving extremely toxically by continuing to let my sister walk all over me. It's obvious that she still favors Miranda, even though she is the main problem. I plan to have a serious talk with my mom. I called my aunt to get her version of events, and it turned out that my mom hadn't told her the whole truth. So I had to do it for her. When my aunt found out that Miranda had lied to me, made me babysit, and was hiding from her boyfriend that she was a mother of two, she apologized to me and promised to talk to my mom. I don't know what conversation took place between them, but soon my mom sent me a message reproaching me for not involving my aunt in our personal affairs and for not making my sister look bad. I'm so tired of my mom coming up with ridiculous excuses for Miranda's actions but never saying anything to her. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. Despite my attempts to distance myself from Miranda, the tension in the family has only grown. My mom continued to pressure me to forgive Miranda and start being a part of her life again, meaning babysitting her children. She even started emotionally blackmailing me, saying that she and my father were getting older and soon the only family I would have left would be Miranda. I decided to have a frank conversation with my mom and asked her to meet me separately, warning her in advance not to bring up Miranda. She agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, and I hoped for an honest and calm conversation. Sitting at the table, I took a deep breath, preparing for a difficult conversation. First, I said that I love her and my dad very much and want to maintain a healthy relationship with them. I said that I understand her concern about old age and the importance of family unity, but I stressed that my emotional well-being is no less important for maintaining a normal relationship with her. I explained to her the enormous emotional damage Miranda's manipulations had caused me over the years and why I had to prioritize my mental health. My mom, clearly experiencing an internal conflict, listened as I gave examples of Miranda's toxic behavior since childhood and told her how it had all affected my life. I shared my feelings about how often I was ignored, used, and manipulated. I hoped to convey to her the seriousness of the situation. Her face showed a whole range of emotions, from guilt to an understanding of what was happening. The conversation unexpectedly took a new turn when, after a pause, my mom admitted that she was actually well aware of Miranda's manipulative nature but preferred to turn a blind eye to it for the sake of maintaining at least an external family harmony. She said that when Miranda was born prematurely, she had some health problems that scared my mom very much, and she became overly protective of my sister. That's why she was blind to all her actions, as she was simply grateful that the child was alive and well. Hearing this, I felt my heart break. I reminded her that I was her child too and that I also needed her in my childhood. I said that it wasn't my fault that I was born healthy. I said that I understood how difficult it was for her in that situation, but I urged her to talk to Miranda openly. Otherwise, her own children would treat her with the same resentment in the future as I did. I stressed that family problems can only be solved if everyone acknowledges and discusses them openly. My mom nodded in understanding, which was a complete surprise to me, as I didn't even hope that she would be able to hear me at all. We discussed the importance of personal boundaries, and I explained to my mom that I needed personal space, so I decided not to talk to her for a while. My mom started begging me not to disappear for years, said that she loved me and regretted everything I had to go through. I assured her that I didn't plan on disappearing forever, but I really needed time. When my mom and I were finally able to clear the air, I felt much better. Later, my father contacted me separately. He also acknowledged Miranda's manipulative nature and said he understood my decision. He admitted that he regretted letting her behave this way for so many years and assured me that he respected my desire to take care of my own mental health. He said he was always ready to support me, which is probably the best thing a child can hear from a parent. I completely cut off contact with Miranda and even installed cameras at my front door so that if she ever tried to pull something like this again, I would have grounds to go to the police. Update 3. It's been 4 months since my last update. The reason for my absence was that I decided to take a break from social media and deleted all the apps. My mental health has improved significantly. I also started seeing a psychologist regularly and actively engaged in personal growth. My relationship with Tom is still strong. Last month, he unexpectedly proposed to me during a romantic date on the beach. It was very sweet. He was nervous and shaking slightly when he got down on one knee and took out the ring. I still can't believe that in a few months I'll be marrying such a wonderful person. I told my parents the news. Although we rarely talk, my parents are very happy for me. They adore Tom. I recently learned that Miranda moved out of our parents' house after they finally lost their patience with her constant late nights and coming home drunk in the early hours. She, of course, tried to argue with them, but in the end, she had no choice but to move out. My parents agreed to pay her rent for 6 months, and after that, she will have to manage on her own. Dave pays her child support every month. However, I doubt that this money will be enough for her personal expenses. I hope that at least for the sake of her children, she will finally grow up and start behaving responsibly. Well, that's all. I'm waiting for your opinion on the story in the comments. Personally, I believe that Miranda will not change and will continue her bad behavior. What about you? Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new videos if you haven't already. Watch our previous videos which you'll see right here. And good luck to you.